Well, good morning, Linda. It's delightful that we get to share another conversation. For anybody who's tuning in who doesn't know who you are, I'll just mention that you and I have been friends for some years now, and we've been talking a lot about our thoughts, strategies, and efforts to connect people in this era. Formally, you're a founder of the Lean In Together Minneapolis St. Paul group, which has at least 7,000 members, many of whom come from outside the United States. And within that group, there are 30 ongoing peer coaching circles. The entire organization is volunteer run. And you've been also part of the Lean In Network Leaders for 12 years. And in this capacity, you've been collaborating with Lean In Network leaders around the world, which includes over 180 countries. So over that time, you've gained a lot of chops on bringing people into spaces and experiences that help them knit together relationships that matter to them. And whenever I talk to you, you bring a perspective that I don't have, and inevitably I'm learning something, which is why I wanted to share this conversation. So thank you for this time.
You're welcome. I've learned a ton from you and also the people that you've brought together.
Great.
You've actually had a big impact on our network.
Yeah, one of the things you brought up when we were speaking recently was that you and I both know that when people come to a space and they want to make friends, they want to connect, as they say colloquially.
Yep.
We know that they don't know often that they're seeking for some level of vulnerability, a level they're comfortable with, right? And part of our job as being hosts is understanding what is appropriate vulnerability for that room. And it's going to be radically different for different rooms. And if it's too much, it's going to scare people. When you recognize that there's capacity for more vulnerability in a room, i.e. the people who have gathered feel safe enough that you think they go deeper. You mentioned that one of the things you like to do is invite participants to share a secret. You know that that can go poorly. And so you have to do it, I'm going to use the word delicately, like wisely. And I'm certain that you have a lot of chops, so you can kind of smell how to do that and what's appropriate. But it's very dangerous if we just tell other people, oh, invite people to show up and tell secrets. And you really had a great perspective on that. So if you could share more here, that'd be great.
So this example comes from a gathering that happened of Lean In Network leaders. And so it was this third morning that we were out walking together. So before the conference had begun. So there was a little bit of rapport among that group, and they were all leaders. So in my home network, I would do this among the leaders group. I would not do this among the general membership. So there was a trust that these are people who have kept confidences and that I stated that at the end. And this is all confidential and we're not going to share any of this. So that I think is important to that. And I had known that particularly among women, that there's a lot of information that people don't share. And it has a huge impact on people feeling shame and alone. And anything you can do to move toward a little more honesty in that group can have life-changing impact. Lots of examples over the last 12 years where if things are elevated for whatever reason, it makes a little room, like people having brought themselves to a conference, a place where they don't live. It's an elevated situation and they have built trust. And I model it by going first. And I say, here's something I don't generally share with people. And I know you're not going to share with anyone else. Next person shares something moderate risk, no comments, no commentary. People just sort of acknowledge. Next person goes, next person shares something probably closer to what I shared in terms of a little higher risk level of vulnerability. Things could proceed from there. And the whole tone changes quite a bit. People felt closer to each other. I think the relationships became closer at that point. And it wasn't something that I particularly felt compelled to share with anyone, but I knew that it was an unusual thing that had just happened. And we were out on a walk, and there is, I know from walking marathons, this whole thing about people share things in hot tubs and on marathon routes. So these unusual things, something about being out in nature, maybe as well. So I think the level of sharing was fit with the situation and the unusualness of the situation. So it would have been, in my mind, a missed opportunity to not say, let's lean in here a little bit. Let's risk showing a little bit more of things, given that this is a high trust environment.
So I'm hearing a couple of things made that work. First of all, you recognized that your participants already knew there was a base level of trust and that this wasn't just a source for lots of gossip where they'd be reading about what they're sharing on social media. And the second one is when you role modeled a very gentle level of vulnerability in the secret, and that you noticed that your participants also then followed that role modeling in a very gentle level. So you weren't throwing them into a high risk, high vulnerability conversation they didn't ask for.
Yeah. There was a sense that it was safe to share something that you feel comfortable with, but that not everybody can handle. So given who's here, And knowing that we've handled a lot of stuff, there's a little more room than normal for it to not take on a life of its own and for you to not have blowback from you having shared this.
What I'm remembering when we had our earlier conversation is you did this really great thing where you defined a secret, not that nobody knows or that you are afraid anybody will know. It's something about ourselves that isn't known to everyone. I'm trying to think of an example of something that's known to parts of my life, but isn't known for other parts. And that would count as a secret if I share something that's true in my sport life, but friends at church don't know. And I say, well, it's a secret that I actually spend all this time preparing to this thing, right? And that what I loved about that was it gave permission to others to participate without requiring them to pull up something that they're still holding close to their heart, maybe for good reason. And so it gave them a valve because I can share, well, you don't know about this because you're not in my sport life. Or you don't know about this because you're not in my neighborhood life. But it's true about me and I'm okay that people know it. Otherwise, I think what happens is people are scared of the activity. Maybe rightfully so. And then they start lying because if we don't want to share the real stuff, then we got to make up stuff that's not real just to be in the game, so to speak.
And it does seem like it's adjacent to something that you're proud of that you don't normally get to talk about. So very similar to that in that you're going to a place of this is a strength and not everybody can handle it. And it is definitely the case of when women own their strengths, people can be like, who do you think you are? Like it can be held against you. So there is kind of a tacit acknowledgement that some people can't handle this, that you are really proud of something or that you have performed at a high level and you feel good about it. You're not humbly saying this, you are saying, I proudly got through this and the circumstances are right. I own it. This is something that I will continue to be proud of and want to other people to know if they've earned that right to hear it. And I actually think that we're now seeing Brene Brown as she is on her book tour from her latest book, doing the same thing. She's talking about that part of why she is so perceived as charismatic is because she prepares. She has executive presence because she is well prepared. And she's saying, it's not this other thing. It's because I have done my homework. I show up with presence because I know what I'm talking about. And I have not heard her say, basically, like some women, female leaders will pay a price for. If you fully claim your strengths, like, who do you think you are? So I think there is a new conversation that's happening where she's built up enough positive energy with people that she can now say, I'm proud of how I am. And I don't like when it's characterized as something that I haven't actually earned or worked hard to make happen.
Yeah, I loved your take that we can invite people to share a secret and that the secret that counts is something we're proud of that we're not sharing so that we divorce that vulnerability from simple shame. And I know that, I have a life that's pretty extraordinary. And right now the success I have is the results of, in this case, decades of buildup. And to someone just meeting me may not occur to them that what's going on now is a reflection of 20 years of work. It just looks like it fell out of the sky, right? And so I find myself not sharing the wins. I'm afraid of how that will read to people who aren't close to me. And so I can imagine it would be very liberating for someone to invite me to space and say, well, part of what we want to do here is share the things that we're not allowed to share or don't feel permission to share that we're proud of.
What I love is there does seem to be of a whole piece in the Lean In Together Minneapolis St. Paul network that for the last few years, we've been doing this yes and approach to compliments. Someone says something positive and we say, yes, it's true. And oftentimes the most acceptable thing to say is, I've worked hard to get here. So not necessarily that here's my award I got for the thing you're recognizing. We've heard that as kind of a model, but it's more like you can claim it in a way that I am proud of that. And then you give more evidence of the work that it takes to get there or something where you embellish it versus deny it. So anything in that direction is, I feel like, forward moving. That's the kind of thing where it becomes more acceptable for female leaders to not only take in the praise that's coming toward them, but also expect that of the other leaders in the group. Like, can you just take another crack at that? It looked like you were denying your strength. And I want the group to know that is a characteristic that you have. And it's actually confusing to people when you deny it. It's like, we all see you doing this. Can you just accept it? So it's like, it is another part of the leadership is acknowledging what's true.
Yeah, you're touching on something that I learned when we were on our journey in creative circles, that I would approach someone that I really admired their work. And sometimes it would be a lot of work to approach them because it might be a crowded room, or maybe they were getting a lot of attention because their work was getting a lot of attention. But I want them to know, hey, I'm another artist in this room, and I just think what you're doing is extraordinary. And I want you to hear that before I leave. And I would seek them out at some level. and then share that with them. And I remember on a number of occasions, they dismissed my judgment. They didn't mean to. I think it was malicious, but they told me, your assessment that my work is worth attention and your admiration is unwarranted. I was like, no, man, I don't think you understand. I have pretty high standards. I'm working pretty hard myself. I have a little bit of success myself. All I'm doing is telling you, congratulations. What you're doing is working. And I didn't need you to tell me that I have bad judgment. I'm sure she was just thinking she was being polite, but it was so disappointing to have her tell me like, oh, well, in so many words, you're wrong.
No, it is the thing from the Lean In book from Sheryl Sandberg that I repeat. It's not luck, it's not hard work, and it's not the team. You have to say it was me. I am the consistent thing that I am bringing forward. And that is, we're trying to desensitize our audience to that that's okay. It's okay to say, yes, it's true. Even if you have to say, I'm proud because I learned it from these people, but you do claim it at some point. You say yes. And then whatever you say to expand upon it is, I think, a triumph.
Yeah, I think it's a duty of us who are approached by someone who wants to pay us a compliment, maybe because we're having success in things we work at, to honor them in their participation in providing that feedback. Just recently, someone I was contacted and said they had read everything I'd written. I think she meant the books. That was delightful because I know people largely don't read books. And when they read books, they read all the books, that kind of thing. So it's a big deal. I am not belittling that whatsoever. And what I wanted her to know is the reality of on my side of the keyboard is I spend untold months making stuff. And the truth is when I make it, I don't know where it's going to go, who it's going to go to, and if it gets there, if it's going to make a difference. I hope it will, right? But I don't know. And so it actually is really powerful when someone says, hey, remember all the time you put in? It went somewhere. And in that case, it was helpful to me. And I wanted her to know that that's legit. Like I'm actually really touched to learn that because if she doesn't tell me, no feedback on that.
Yes. I mean, it lives in my mind, the French Lean In leader who said she listened to the podcast several times. And I was like, English is not your first language and you listened to this several times. Okay. Like you actually think you heard something important that I was saying in this podcast. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. That was a really rich conversation. And when I'm thinking about how I can be more direct in inviting people to act vulnerability, inviting them to share secrets that are known to some people, but not everyone, is helpful. And inviting to share secrets about things they're proud of that they don't get to talk about or don't talk about. It's a fantastic way to open up a door into a deeper conversation without scaring the hell out of people. So I'm glad you brought that to my attention. And I keep learning from you.